Assalamu alaikum to everyone. Welcome to the Tarbiyah Project Podcast. Today we have the most amazing Sana Tanveer Malik on our podcast, who I have the honor of calling a friend who started off as my parent coach, and she is still my parent coach. and I've done courses with her, and she is absolutely phenomenal. And I am super excited to have her on to share her wisdom with us, inshallah. So, Sana, please introduce yourself.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Sana. Thank you for the very kind words. I am a parent coach, like Sarah said. I'm also a student of mental health counseling at the University of Texas. I live in Dallas, like Sarah does, and I have two kids, an 11-year-old and an 8-year-old, and I have two cats. You might see them at some point. They're here with me. And is that all? Or do you want to know more about me?
You are also certified specifically, so I want you to mention that as well.
Yes, I am certified as a parent educator with the Positive Discipline Association of the United States, and I'm also a certified ADHD parent coach. So my special interest is in supporting parents of children with neurodivergent children, so autism, ADHD, etc.
Yeah, yeah. Super cool. But today we are actually not really talking too much about the parenting aspect of it, as our goal is with this is inshallah just bringing forward different topics that would still impact moms or parents. And so I know one of the things that Sana has been delving into and researching, and she's a researcher by nature, so she goes all deep, and we still haven't talked about it too much because we just haven't had a chance, is gratitude and how gratitude impacts our lives. So let's start with that. Let's start with defining what gratitude is. And we would here love to speak from an Islamic perspective as well, just because we understand how important that is as Muslims.
Yeah, yeah. So, so yes, like you said, every several months or so, I get this new topic stuck in my head, and I'm like, oh, I want to know the ins and outs of it, like based on Islam and what like science is telling us these days. It's always like fun to see how it works together and gels together. So the thing with gratitude, like, and I think I'm really glad that you brought up the definition first and foremost, because uh, there's in our community, I think there's such a thin line between gratitude and gaslighting. And I
Mm,
just want to make sure that we are able to differentiate between them because you know this, Sarah, through your work, and I know it from my work, that uh, gratitude is often used as a weapon to silence people,
mhm,
right? So sabr and shukr, they're used as weapons to silence people. Like, don't talk about your feelings, don't talk about your problems, just be grateful, be patient, and somehow minimize everything that's hard and just focus on the positive.
mm.
That's not what gratitude is, right?
Because somewhere, Sana, the understanding is that if you are complaining, or even not even complaining, sharing any of your struggles, then the understanding is that only one can exist at one time. So
Mm,
if you are, showing that you are in struggle, then you are not being grateful.
yeah.
So there's a lot of belief around that.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a beautiful way you said it, that the idea that it has to be one or the other.
Yeah.
But we know that Islam is not black and white like that. Like our deen is not black and white like that. There's just so much nuance in our religion. And gratitude is the same, I think, which is why like the definition is so important. The idea that we're able to look at what is good in our lives, what is positive in our lives, appreciate that, but we don't minimize or deny the hardships that are also
Mm,
present.
mm,
We can be aware that something is hard and
mm,
still find something to be grateful about or grateful for without like completely saying, oh, like, let's not think about the hardship. Let's
mm,
not think about the difficulty because somehow that would negate my gratitude. And
mm,
that's not true. I
mm.
think like there's, like you said, there two things can be true at the same time. Things can be hard and you can be grateful at the same time, right?
Mm.
So just like it's really important for us to like remember that gratitude does not mean gaslighting yourself or gaslighting other people.
And so, since you mentioned that, you also should define what gaslighting is, because not a lot of people might know what gaslighting means.
Right. So I'm going to paraphrase it. I don't know the exact official definition, but the
Yeah.
idea that we minimize, dismiss, or make somebody feel like that, or ourselves feel like that what we're experiencing or what we're feeling is not as significant or as important as it
Mm,
was.
mm,
So if something feels hard to me and I say to myself, you're making this up, it's all in your head, that's what gaslighting myself would look like. If I share with a friend that I, my husband and I had a fight last night, and he called me curse words, for example,
mm,
you know, and the friend says, yeah, that happens sometimes, in fights it happens, don't think about it too much,
mm,
like everybody does that.
mm,
And now in my head, like, maybe like my dignity was affected, my sense of honor and worth were affected by my husband calling me these curse words. But now my friend is making me like gaslight or like think about like, oh, maybe it wasn't as big a deal as I thought it was. Maybe it's okay for my husband to, like use bad words about me. So that's
mm.
what gaslighting would look like when you minimize somebody's experience and make them doubt themselves.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really good to understand. And I think so many women experience that without even knowing that they're being gaslit, especially when it comes to, I mean, it starts early on, right? Like when you get married or pregnancy,
Mhm.
हमें क्यों मुश्किल लग रहा है? सभी औरतें करती हैं, है ना? So that happens to
Yeah.
all women, or I don't know why you're not able to manage two kids. हमने तो चार पैदा किए थे या चार किए थे. So it,
Yeah.
it has it has different versions of it, but it's important for us to at least recognize that that's what's happening to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, go ahead.
No. I'm saying that's exactly it. That uh, like, and I think even before like marriage and kids, we experience that like right from childhood, right?
Mm.
When a child is having a hard time or like, oh, you're okay, nothing happened, you didn't
It's
get hurt.
okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. It's okay. You didn't get hurt. Like, oh, look over there and look, do that. And when you distract them and you're minimizing their pain, and the child's reality is very shook because now it's like, uh, so the pain I experience is not really real. So my parent is telling me that it wasn't as big as I thought it was. So it's very hard for children to navigate their reality if it's constantly being dismissed. So it makes sense why it would set a pattern for the rest of our lives. So that when my saas says to me that, like, why are you complaining so much? हम तो दो बच्चे गोद में रख के 20 रोटियां बनाते थे खानदान के लिए. So then you're like, oh, she's probably right. My reality is to be doubted. She's probably right.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that as most Muslim women who are trying, really striving to be the best Muslimas they can be, and they are now coming to a point where they really want to have a characteristic of being grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, be gratitude to feel gratitude in the way that they're living, regardless of what their life situations are. Could they possibly be gaslighting themselves for the struggles that they have? And is it, why is that so? Why does that seem so fake sometimes? Is it like we're trying to be grateful, but it doesn't come easy?
It doesn't.
What's the struggle there?
Yeah. So there are several things there. I think we've already talked about one, which is that when we're constantly doubting our reality, we're constantly doubting our experiences, or people are constantly doing that for us, it's very hard to then really uh, be present to whatever our reality is. And that includes the good and the bad. Because often we think that if we just minimize what is bad, we just ignore what is bad, we just numb our difficult feelings, that somehow it will make us more open to positive feelings and positive experiences. But that's not true. That's not how our nervous system works, right? So, which is a great segue to something that I've been thinking about a lot, which is like the neuroscience of gratitude. Because so when I look into the research of gratitude, like a lot of what has been done so far, last like research that I know about that was done in like 2017, perhaps, I think, on why some people struggle with gratitude. And their research concluded that a huge part of it, which I do agree with, is that people who tend to struggle with gratitude a lot are people who have this sense of entitlement, a sense of preoccupation with yourself, which makes sense. We all know entitled people, right? We all know people who think like the world owes them something, right? And if you believe that the world owes you something, the universe owes you something, Allah owes you something, subhanAllah, so then it's hard to be grateful because, of course, they owe me something. So why should I express any gratitude, right? So we do know there that's definitely valid that people who do struggle with gratitude could struggle with that part of it, where on one end of the spectrum would be narcissists who think the whole world revolves around them. So, of course, like, they deserve everything and more that you can give them, or Allah can give them, subhanAllah. So, they deserve everything. So why do they need to be grateful? So we have that end of the spectrum. And on the other end of the spectrum are just people who have that preoccupation with the self, where like me, mine, and there could be many different reasons for that, right? Like, and people who do struggle with like a preoccupation with the self, maybe it's entitlement, maybe it's not. Again, like, looking at it through a very self-compassionate lens, that why am I always thinking about this? What is this preoccupation that I have with myself? And again, there could be many valid reasons for it. It doesn't have to be just that I'm a bad person or that I am an entitled person, because that carries a bit of a judgment in it. So, but just the idea that if I'm preoccupied with myself, where did that come from? Why is it there? And how can I grow out of it, right? So there's definitely, that's what research has shown. I think now that we know more about brain science and the latest findings in like the nervous system, I think my theory is that there's a little bit more of an element there, which is again, like, you and I have talked about the polyvagal theory and the three states of the nervous system before. And just to like summarize it like really fast for people who are watching and listening, that the idea is that we are in any given moment, we're either feeling safe or unsafe, right? Our bodies and our nervous systems are picking up internal and external cues of safety. So either we're noticing something doesn't feel safe or does feel safe inside of our bodies, which is like, am I like physically safe? Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Do I need to use the bathroom? So those cues that the body requires, as well as from the external environment. And again, we're not just talking about like a snake crossing our path. We're talking about those aunties that who might make you feel like you're walking on eggshells every time you're around them, right? So it can be any level of safety or lack thereof, right? So in any given moment, we're either safe or unsafe. If we're feeling unsafe, people tend to have two different stress responses to that feeling of lack of safety. It can either be that you're going to fight and flight, which we call like the red zone, or people can slip further down into the blue zone, which is the freeze zone, which is when you completely tend to shut down. And it makes sense when you think about it, like from a lack of like physical safety perspective. So let's say again, that snake in my path, I come across a snake. I am terrified of snakes in real life. I'm terrified of snakes. So if I come across a snake, it's gonna be like du'a. So can I fight with the snake so I can become safe again? Probably not, right? Can I run away from the snake fast enough? I don't know. I'm not a good runner, and snakes are pretty fast. And then finally, the idea that like, oh, can I freeze my response to the snake so that the snake might think I'm dead already and leave me alone? So what the body does to prepare for that would be like you're nervous, like everything shuts down, your digestive system shuts down, your breathing slows down, your heart rate slows down. The idea is that let's just pretend that we're dead and we are not alive, and so that the danger will just like avert and leave us alone. Again, fantastic response, right? If we are in a like a lack of danger, that's a great response. And even in like relationships, when we think about lack of relational safety, yeah, it makes sense, like if a child freezes when a parent is yelling at them, there's a good chance the parent is gonna like stop yelling after a while and just walk away, as opposed to if the child starts fighting back or screaming back, which would be the fight response, right? So it just makes sense. It's easier, it's safer for the
The
person.
coping mechanism that works. It's a coping mechanism that works, right?
Absolutely.
In a
Yeah.
moment, it actually works.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's a very valid response.
Mhm.
Except if there are people, like a lot of us, who tend to live for prolonged periods of time in these like red or blue zones, is areas where you constantly feel like you're not safe. So you're either dipping into the red, or which is like you're constantly crabby, you're constantly irritated, you're constantly like snappy, you're like, like that fight and flight response, that you're just constantly there. Again, like in the moment it's fantastic, it helps you, but staying there for a long period of time, it depletes your body budget. It's really hard for your body to stay in any of those zones for a long time, because that's not what the body is designed for. That's not what these systems are designed for, right? So same thing for the blue zone then, that if somebody is there, like that's their immediate stress response, they're there for prolonged periods of time, and again, for very valid reasons, right? I really want to make sure that anybody who's listening to this is not like sees things from that self-compassionate lens, that there's a reason if you are there in the blue zone for extended periods of time, or the red zone for extended periods of time, right? So, and the thing with the blue zone then is that, like we talked about numbing ourselves, that again, it works. Like, like you and me, like at the end of the day, sometimes like when you're so tired, it feels so good to just zone out on the phone, right? You go to Instagram and you go to Reels, and now you're not even like fully aware of what you're watching, but you're just
Mhm.
scrolling, 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 because it's so nice to have that release, and that
What
is,
is another, if we can give a couple more examples for each zone? So I think for people to relate, for people who are learning about this for the first time, you know, scrolling or mindlessly watching, binge watching Netflix is one very understandable, relatable kind of example, because it's not intentional. Like, that's the difference between, doing it intentionally and saying, I'm going to watch one episode and then I'm going to be done, rather than just clicking and clicking. What's another example of the numbing zone that
yeah.
could be impacting people?
Uh, any kind of addictions. So be it
Feeding, food.
eating, yeah, binge eating, emotional eating, people who might be like, again, like going back to addicted to like watching TV, their phones, any kind of addictions, they can, or like, I mean, I don't know who watches this, if it's just moms, but like their dads, like smoking, like, I mean,
Chai, I know for the desis, chai is a big thing.
chai, yes.
If something is unsettling, so let me just go grab, make a chai for myself.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. So many people use that like as a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
It's
And
not.
then what would be a couple more actual examples that people can like pinpoint, almost like identifiers for people who might be in the red zone?
So for the red zone, it would look like I said before, somebody who's constantly irritable. Like you say one thing and they just like have a blast, and you're like, what? Like,
Mhm.
that was a big overreaction. What's going on with you, right? So, or somebody who's just has a really hard time slowing down. They're
Mhm.
constantly on the go. Again, that adrenaline and the cortisol is like pushing them, like it's very hard to slow down. Don't slow down. Slowing
Mhm.
down does not feel safe, right? So people who just find it really hard to slow down, I would say they would fall into the red zone category as well. Um, what else would fall into fight and flight? Uh, People who tend to like any sign of conflict and they're out.
Non-confrontational.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Any sign of conflict, and they're like, okay, whatever. Okay, let's talk about something
So,
else.
so how does that, or is there more to this, or can we now begin to understand how does that impact our, understanding this is important, but then how
Yeah.
does that bring it back to the gratitude
Yeah,
piece?
yeah, yeah. So exactly. So the thing with gratitude, like with the blue zone, then is that if it's working, like we're numbing all those hard feelings, because it doesn't really feel safe for us to, because you and me, like we have like 20 million things to think about and do every day, right? And to our bodies, it might feel like I can't sit here and feel all this resentment that's inside of me.
Mm.
I can't sit here and feel all this envy or jealousy inside of me about how easy some other people might have it and I don't, right? And again, like, then a meta feeling will come in and say, oh, you're such a bad person for having these feelings in the first place, right? So instead of like feeling and like, wrestling with all of these difficult feelings, like some people might call them like negative feelings, it's just easier to like bury them, ignore them, not feel them, numb them, use something, coping mechanism, like I'm going to eat my way through them or something. So what that does is like, okay, it's going to bury all the difficult feelings, but it just doesn't work that way where only the negative, we can't pick and choose what we're burying or what we're numbing. So that means all the positive feelings are getting numbed too. So now, like those people who will tell you that happiness always feels dull to me.
Mm.
Like I'm happy. Of course I'm happy. Life is good, but I don't feel happy.
Mm. Mm.
Even the happiness feels dull.
Mm.
Like you're sitting there, you're laughing with your friends, and something still feels empty inside,
Mm.
right? So that is a consequence of numbing our feelings, that the happiness will also get numbed. The gratitude would also get numbed. And the thing with that is that, and then coming back to like our topic, the idea that if our gratitude is being numbed, because we're treating it as an emotion, how can we use that very practice to make us come out from the blue zone to the green zone by treating that not as a fleeting emotion, but as a practice now, something that I'm doing as an action. So it's really interesting that like, we go, when we go into the blue zone, we're not really feeling gratitude. However, if we make it intentional, we can actually use that to finally go from the blue or the red zone to the green zone. Because gratitude, we know, can
But what would that look like? I'm just trying to think, what does that look like for someone who's found, now that they know this, all of this, and they can recognize, okay, I've been scrolling for the last half an hour, and I don't know why I'm scrolling. I don't know why I'm, feeling so, need to numb myself. Now, what can they actually do? Like, is there a practice that they can actually do?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing I think, which is probably the hardest one, is going to be finding some moment of presence and mindfulness. Because it's so hard to be present to the good things in our life if we're not slowing down and actually recognizing them, right? So being able to actually slow down and breathe and say, what feels good right now? You know, and like that takes a huge level of self-awareness and mindfulness and presence, especially for people who are constantly escaping themselves, right? So that would be my first thing, like where finding a moment to practice, like not even starting with gratitude per se. I mean, if you can, that's great, but like starting with like presence. So even like taking a few minutes, like not even a few minutes, like several times through the day, if you can just like take a second and say, how does my body feel right now? My shoulders feel really tight. And that's it. You don't even have to like go into like a proper meditation or big, long, like body scan practice. You don't have to do that. But just like building those, like giving your body those tiny drops of self-awareness. So hopefully eventually you can expand on that so that you can like start really connecting with yourself a little. Doesn't just have to be the body. Like if it's hard for you to notice your body, like start off with just like environment. So like, what can I hear in this moment? I hear the hum of my computer. I hear my cat playing with a toy. Okay, that's it. 10 seconds at the most. Really giving ourselves those doses of presence and mindfulness, because that is what will help us slow down enough to actually start noticing the good in our lives as well. And when we're able to do that, when we're able to actually start being more present, then there are several like things we can do that can help us build that gratitude muscle, really, right? So that would look like gratitude journaling. I know that is having its big moment right now. And I mean, there's actual research that shows maintaining a gratitude journal can make you 25% more happy, which is a pretty significant number. Yeah, I was surprised about that too. But the really good thing, though, that I found through the research is that you actually don't have to do gratitude journaling every day. Research shows that some research indicated that actually doing it like 2 or 3 times a week showed better results than doing it every day, because then you don't
Mm.
have gratitude fatigue. You know, like, have you ever done like the daily gratitude practice and
Yeah.
you're like, it's the same things. I can't think of anything new. What
Yeah.
is it? You know? So it becomes hard to think of something new every day, right? So, but like doing it like maybe like 2 or 3 times a week, even, where you're just like, oh, what am I grateful for? What's been going on for me? And again, it doesn't have to be just like all the, like moti baatein. We always think of the moti baatein. Okay, oh, I have a house over my head, which is of course like a big thing to be grateful for, but really like fine tuning it a little bit to your own experiences, where like, oh, we didn't get late for school today,
Mm.
you know, and just
Mm.
finding something small. It doesn't have to be big things, because often when we're trying to be grateful, we think, oh, let me be grateful for the house or the clothes on my back or my kids, or whatever, which is all wonderful. But
Mm.
like that is where the gratitude fatigue kicks in, because after a while you stop thinking about things.
Yeah.
Like, or what else should I be grateful for? What things should I be grateful for?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like really like noticing your experiences, like, oh, we didn't get late for school today, or I got to drink my chai in peace today without anybody climbing on me. That feels pretty good. Or for me, like, oh, my cat came up to me herself and she gave me a hug today, and that felt amazing. So like finding like little experiences and
Mm.
little moments that feel good, and
Mm.
really like relishing it without like saying, oh yeah, that happened today, so I'm gonna write that down. Like really relishing it, like noticing how it felt, noticing even now when you think about it, when it happened, how does it make you feel, right?
Mm.
So really just like being present to the goodness that came in our lives, and doesn't, again, like not negating that things are, maybe the rest of the day was pretty crappy anyway, and you can acknowledge that, but you can also say, like that moment when my child was in my lap, that felt really good.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, well, those are really good. I think we are limited on time because Sana has a class to go to, so we will probably need multiple parts of this because there's so much more to talk about, and I think you have so much more to share, inshallah. So I will just end on this is that in one of the coaching programs that I was with you on, the Anoke Parents one of the things that you said, this was like 2.5 years ago, is still stuck to me. And on those days that I am really struggling and having a really hard time, one thing your voice literally comes back and says, take delight in your children. And it's like I had never thought about my children, especially at that time when they were like 6 and 4, and they're constantly fighting and they were constantly, it was a constant mess. And I'm someone who, is very much in my fight or flight red zone. So it was so difficult, but to just slow down and just look at my children and say, "Oh my God, their eyes are so beautiful." And then it's it's like 2 seconds, and then you move, you
Yeah.
move back into your typical zone. But it's helped me so much. So if someone can take that away, and but we will definitely need more sessions with you, inshallah, and bring that to the community. Jazakallah khair, Sana. I appreciate your time. Please head out. I'm just gonna finish up the summary part, so I'll do that on my own, and then inshallah we'll have you back.
Perfect. Thank you. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. So yeah, I just wanted to summarize that gratitude is sometimes really really difficult for us because we are in different nervous in our different zones in our nervous system, and we don't recognize that. And like Sana said, there are certain codes that were developed because of our childhood patterns, and we tend to usually have the same kind of patterns repeated in our adult life as well. So a lot of them are like codes that are deep down, they're in our system, we don't recognize them. And so one way for us to bring that forth and to be more connected with ourselves is to slow down and to become more aware. So the goal is to create a level of awareness so that we can actually appreciate the negative things and actually acknowledge them and cope with them, and also be able to appreciate and really savor the positives in our lives as well, which is where gratitude comes in. So I hope this was helpful, inshallah, and we will continue these conversations.